Why did the Dairy Institute of California aggressively lobby to protect the use of a common yet contentious food additive? Last week, the Senate in that state passed the California Food Safety Act, which would ban the use of several notable industrial compounds. At the 11th hour, dairy lobbyists were successful in protecting the use of a controversial pigment known as titanium dioxide, or commonly referred to in the industry as E141. The global production of this additive is in the millions of tons annually, and it's valued for its brightening capabilities in the manufacture of white-colored paints, plastics, healthcare products, toothpaste, food, and more. Unlike some other chemicals used in food processing, it has no nutritive, preservative, nor food safety function. Its use is purely cosmetic. So why the concern from the dairy industry? Well, amidst the fat-free craze of the last 50 years, developers of fat-free dairy products sought to replace the white color that was lost due to the absence of creamy milk fat. Intensive ad campaigns aimed at heart disease and obesity prevention persuaded consumers into purchasing reduced-fat milk. The problem was, most sensory scores indicated a visual hang-up because skim milk rated lower than its creamier, more textured, full-fat counterpart. The addition of titanium dioxide improved these sensory properties, and by the 90s, its use became ubiquitous in dairy products. Nowadays, most consumers don't realize they're actually consuming E141 because the ingredient became exempt from certification by the FDA in 1977, meaning that it doesn't actually have to be listed on the ingredient panel in many cases, simply existing as color added on some of the 1,800 brand name consumer products known to contain E141. None of which, by the way, would be considered particularly health promoting by the majority of conscientious consumers. Proponents of its use in food products will stand firm in their claims that the safety of this additive is certain. From the viewpoint of regulators, they'd be correct. Per the FDA, industries are allowed to self-determine the safety and efficacy of ingredients that are generally recognized as safe. Are you willing to trust chemical companies and food producers to appropriately balance public interests against their profit motives when there's a demonstrable history of American companies that have insisted items like cigarettes, asbestos, and trans fats are safe? In fact, just recently, the FDA has recommended pulling all products using the common pseudoephedrine or Sudafed alternative known as phenylephrine. This is because their research suggests it has no effect whatsoever. So basically, if you bought over-the-counter decongestant in the past 20 years, you were a part of the placebo group. Congrats on money well spent. Anyhow, back to the story about these trustworthy food companies. The FDA has an annual budget of $4.5 billion with around 13,000 full-time employees. Big Pharma spent upwards of $30 billion and utilized hundreds of thousands of lobbyists to further their agenda last year. And that's to say nothing of Big Food. The FDA simply lacks the resources to appropriately vet and retroactively assess every ingredient ever brought to market. It's a reactive agency that responds to acute threats, not long-term ones. This is in contrast to the European Food Safety Authority, which banned the use of E141 in 2021, despite previous approval in 2016. So what led to this change in policy in the EU? To fully understand it, we have to take a look at how ultra-processed foods affect our digestion. A highly processed diet leads to symptoms of inflammatory bowel syndrome, including things like cramping, bloating, belching, constipation, and diarrhea. 1 in 10 Americans suffer with these symptoms daily. You might be one of them. If allowed to persist, this chronic stress can damage the lining of the stomach and intestines. A condition known as leaky gut is a common outcome. In a normal, healthy person, the digestive system is a well-contained environment that effectively handles bacterial toxins that can harm the body if unconfined. With leaky gut, these toxins may be allowed access to deeper tissues in the digestive system and cause lasting damage, including cancer. Titanium dioxide may in fact make this phenomenon worse, as it has been demonstrated in mouse models to act as a shuttle for toxins to more easily permeate the protective barriers in the gut. Basically, it's adding fuel to the fire in digestively compromised individuals, which so many of us are. And the amount we may be consuming is significant. A review in the Journal of Autoimmunity reports that human ingestion of E141 nanoparticles may amount to nearly 1 trillion particles per person per day. The gold standard in human studies is the double-blind, randomized, controlled trial. These studies are complex and prohibitively expensive. As a result, there aren't many of them pertaining specifically to titanium dioxide. But in a 2004 trial of patients with Crohn's disease, those participants on a low microparticle diet saw significant decreases in disease severity and an increase in long-term remission compared to controls. All of this begs the question, why do we insist on combining potential carcinogens and industrial compounds to make food instead of producing and consuming it the way nature intended? Why are we trying to identify solutions to problems that nature already solved? When Land O'Lakes looks for economically viable alternatives to E141, it neglects tradition in favor of progress and hastens the demise of our modern foodscape. Dairy products in their natural states don't need titanium dioxide to look white, but Dairy Gold fat-free half and half sure does. The same refractive index that makes E141 so useful in sunscreens also serves to make the chocolate icing on fudge rounds really pop, so it's got that going for it, I reckon. This could all be construed as pretty troubling stuff, but the point here is not to scare you or make you feel guilty about your choices. My friend Matt Skoglund of Northbridger Bison says, eat with your eyes wide open. When we look at the potential effects of our dietary choices, we have an opportunity to reduce the uncertainties and fill in the gaps within our knowledge base. So the purpose of this whole thing is to encourage that idea of eating with your eyes wide open, and to not just blindly follow what the food industrial complex has laid out as safe or efficacious. As our food system becomes increasingly pasteurized, homogenized, centralized, and commoditized, we've seen corporations succeed in convincing Americans to accept products designed for visual aesthetic, profit, and convenience from manufacturers and distributors, often at the expense of human health. So if you're tired of supporting this broken system with its perverse incentives, go find a local dairy farm in your area, producing raw milk from cattle raised on green pastures. They're out there, and they need your support to make a meaningful and lasting change. And along with that, we have a responsibility to consider that the unattainable and damaging standards of beauty that exist for humans also exist for industrial food products. So let us not deny the inherent natural and beautiful milkiness of milk. For doing so threatens to deny the innate qualities of the humans who consume it. Milk is beautiful just the way it is, and so are you.